We're going to get started with our 12:30 segment. I'm excited about this segment as we're going to talk about your Mississippi infrastructure, specifically roads and bridges and the Mississippi Department of Transportation and how we fund that system. So without further ado, before I introduce these these two panelists, I want to introduce our moderator. I believe I've already talked to y'all a little bit about him in my opening remarks. You all know him. He is the CEO of the Oxford-Lafayette County Economic Development Foundation, CEO Ryan Miller. Many of you know him and knew him in his capacity with Accelerate Mississippi. He has done great things for our state, and I know Oxford-Lafayette County is excited to have him there leading their charge on the economic development front. They don't have anything going on in Oxford, so it's good that they've got somebody good up there to keep some things going. As I welcome Ryan to the stage, I want to also introduce our two panelists that he will be moderating for. Brad White was named the Executive Director of the Mississippi Department of Transportation effective July 1, 2021, and received unanimous confirmation from the Mississippi Senate that following legislative session. A native of Simpson County, Brad is a four-time Chief of Staff, having previously managed the staffs of the Mississippi Department of Audit, U.S. Senator Thad Cochran, U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, and Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves. During the administration of Governor Haley Barbour, Brad served as chairman of the Mississippi Republican Party and as a member of the Republican National Committee. White has a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Management from Belhaven University and resides in Madison, where he is a member of First Baptist Church, serving on both the Church Council and the Personnel Committee. He is past president of the Southern Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. He is accompanied today by Commissioner Willie Simmons. Commissioner Simmons is entering his second term as Central District Transportation Commissioner, which covers 22 counties with a population of approximately 1 million Mississippians. At the first meeting of 2024, the Mississippi Transportation Commission named Commissioner Willie Simmons as chairman. During his first term as Transportation Commissioner, the Central District saw the completion and start of projects such as the completion of the Highway 49 project, which we all celebrated with him, the I-20 Bridge Replacement Project, and the start of the State Route 19 project. Work also will begin on Phase 2 of the Greenville Bypass, and the US 61 State Route 553 project has now been completed. Prior to being elected as Commissioner, Simmons served as Mississippi State Senator for more than 26 years, and for those last 8 years of his service in the Senate, he served as chairman of the Senate Highways and Transportation Committee. He served as Deputy Commissioner of Corrections prior to joining the Mississippi State Senate, and before that time, he served his country as a combat veteran of the Vietnam War. He is a graduate of Alcorn State University and received his master's from Delta State University. He is married to Rose Sibley Simmons, and they have 4 children and 10 grandchildren. I'm proud and thankful to call these gentlemen friends, and I'm proud to have them here with us today. Please help me welcome them to the stage.
Appreciate you being here. Thank you. I was curious how the seating arrangement will work out here. I didn't know if Brad was going to lay down and share all of his childhood traumas or anything, but
we're going to need more than 30 minutes.
I need more than 30 minutes. Well, gentlemen, it is a privilege and an honor to be here sharing the stage with you to talk about something that's obviously very important. I do have questions for the Speaker's office as to why they would see fit to ask me to serve in this capacity. I think when they were sitting there talking about where are the tax experts in the state of Mississippi? How can we bring the brightest minds for tax reform in the state of Mississippi together? Hey, what's that Ryan Miller guy doing? I am, one of these is not like the others. I am not a tax expert, but I am very keenly interested in how tax impacts 2 very important areas that are near and dear to my heart. One is certainly with workforce development, my previous role with Accelerate Mississippi for 3 years, there's no doubt that what you all do each and every day impacts and is impacted by available skilled workforce, but also in my new role of economic development for Oxford-Lafayette County, understanding infrastructure needs and how that benefits projects that might be moving forward in your community or in our community. In fact, I think I heard you, Brad, once say here recently, if they can't get there, they won't come. So the idea of projects being able to find places in Mississippi to make a home for themselves. A little while ago, the first question I want to talk about is how you are funded. I think Chairman Lamar brought up earlier the idea of needing to fix or to seriously scrutinize and overhaul how the Department of Transportation is funded in the state of Mississippi. But I don't know that everyone in the room, I know legislators certainly excluded from this, but not everyone in the room understands what a special fund really is and how MDOT is actually funded currently. So before we kind of get moving into this idea of how it could look in the future, would you both spend a little time talking about how the funds come into your agency, how they're used currently, and what the current condition of funding might be?
Sure. We're very unique in that we are a special funded agency, and that makes us a little bit different from the general fund agency. Our funding, it was a good concept when the legislation in 1987 expanded on what we were doing, because it tracked the federal government funding, which was, we referred to it as a use tax, the fuel tax at the pump. When you go there, the legislature, what they did, because they wanted to expand upon the infrastructure system in Mississippi and build 4-lane highways within 50 miles of every residence. So they did a good job of that. And they came up with a funding formula to say that we will have 18 cents per gallon in the state. That 18 cents is good, but it is not a percentage, it's a cent on the gallon. So it doesn't matter what the price of gas is, we're locked in at that collection of the 18 cents. Now what most people don't understand is that only about 14 cents of that 18 cents actually come to the Department of Transportation annually. We get other means of revenue coming in special funds, the axle tax, the tractor 18-wheelers, and other taxes that get us to now about 48% of our actual funding. We upside down. Federal government is putting in right now about 52% of our funding. So when we talk about a $1.4 billion budget, the federal government has 52% of that, and we only have about 48% of what I'm going to refer to as an antiquated system, which is 18 cents, which has not been raised since 1987 and 1989 when it went into effect.
The only thing I would add to that is we manage a reimbursement program. So like the federal money that every 5 years when the Federal Highway Administration is reauthorized and money is set aside to come to Mississippi and to all the other states and territories, that money doesn't come here and sit in a bank for the commission to spend. We collect, or the state collects and gives to us the state fuel tax, that special fund on a recurring basis that comes into the department. We then spend the state funds to carry out the construction or the maintenance projects, whichever one we're doing. As Federal Highway Administration is able to see that we're doing things in accordance with their rules and regulations, then they reimburse us with the federal money that Congress has set aside. So the funding model that we have, it's not just important that we have adequate funding, but it's also equally important that we get it in a manner that complements how our program is set up to work in conjunction with the Federal Highway Administration. And so that's what makes the need for recurring revenue rather than general appropriation every year. That's what makes that so important and vital to what we do.
Well, and certainly understanding that you are trying to do a great deal with those funds when you are able to access them, and as you say, being reimbursed, you're always having to run out in front of the money to get work done. I don't know that people fully understand how much of a responsibility you have. I think I heard you recently interviewed and talked about just the scale of responsibility that MDOT has as it relates to the number of miles that you have to oversee, number of bridges. Can you share some of the responsibility? Give us an idea, a picture of what MDOT is being asked to do with those resources.
We have over 33,000 miles of highway that we have to maintain, we have to mow, pick up litter from. It's roughly about 500 bridges, I believe, statewide.
About 5,000.
About 1,000 bridges statewide. And then that's in addition to just the pass-through money that we deal with aeronautics, waterports, rail line, public transit, and other things that we do outside of the Office of Highways. But the taxpayers of Mississippi have an asset in highways and bridges that's valued at roughly around $67 billion.
And being an elected commissioner, one of three, it puts us in a position. We have a great leader in Brad, the CEO, and 2,700 employees. But our funding drives our ability or inability to plan. And when we don't have recurring money, or don't have money that we can look into down the road, we can't adequately plan for building a highway. You don't build a highway in 6 months. You don't do it like you do a home. You know, it's a long, drawn-out process when you do the design, the pre-construction to get it shovel-ready, and you don't do that, and the federal government won't help support that unless they know you have the ways and means of funding it. So when we don't have the funding, it's difficult for us to plan. But more important, it's very difficult for the industry to plan. We, for 20 plus years, 30 years, was not in the building mode. So as a result of that, our industry downsized so that they could survive, and some may have gone out of business. Well, now they would like to build up so that when we get monies, they are there ready to roll out and build those projects. It's very difficult for them to plan when we don't have the resources that they know and we know is going to come in to give them that long-term planning.
And I would imagine, too, even with the workforce component of having the people internally that you need, being paid what you know is competitive in the marketplace to ensure that you have the people on staff, both internal in your office, but out in the field that can make those projects a reality. And I also want to say, too, I certainly appreciate the fact that we're talking about workforce, economic development, but also the safety aspect of it, too. And I'll just share candidly and personally, you know, I'm grateful for what you all do in trying to help maintain roads and bridges and all their instrumentalities in interstate commerce. You know, I lost my father in a car accident 7 years ago in a stretch of highway that's a 2-lane that will soon be a 4-lane, and making that much easier to navigate, much more navigable for an increase in traffic. So I'm grateful, not just from the economic development side, but also from the perspective of how do we improve this infrastructure to make it safer for Mississippians. I want to ask, in the current pipeline of projects that you have, what are some of the current projects that you have, where are they located, and kind of the scale and scope of some of those projects ongoing?
We have projects all over the state. We want to thank Speaker White and the Lieutenant Governor and Governor and all 174 legislators, because for the past 3 years, they have gotten into the mode of not just kicking the can down the road altogether, but they have put capacity monies in place. And it comes to about 780-some million, 500 million last, not this past session before, 250 million this session, and 35 million 3 sessions ago. That gives us an opportunity to put projects in place. So you have seen us making the announcement on 7/15/55 and some Flowers project over in Vicksburg, a small project in Neshoba County, Highway 19. So those are projects and capacity projects. And then down south, Interstate 10, I-10, and some others. But we also have a significant number of maintenance projects. You see our contractors and workers out now working all over the place. So I would say it's a ton of projects that we have going, and we are going to be able to pay for those projects, except for those capacity projects, which the legislation has been giving us one-time money on. Mm-hmm. And we want to talk to you about that as we go forward, about how we need to make sure we can balance that and build going forward.
The only thing I would add is when you look at the Office of Highways, we deal with two big deals. You've got maintenance, the upkeep of the existing system that the taxpayers have, and then capacity construction, which is the adding to the system to make it safer, make it more efficient, cause it to be able to handle the new capacity of traffic on it. The problem that we got into as a state was about 12 years or so ago, due to our funding model not being modernized and lack of funding, the commission had to make the choice to shelf the capacity program with a few exceptions in order to devote all the money to maintenance, because to do otherwise would have put in jeopardy all the federal funds if we started falling behind in our maintenance. With the last reauthorization of federal highway, Mississippi received an extra $1 billion, thanks in large part Senator Wicker was the lead Republican on the committee that was writing that particular bill. And then the legislature, as Commissioner said, stepped up and has begun contributing greatly to those programs. But the reason that you go around the state, and if you're on the coast or if you're in DeSoto County, you get in the areas of northeast Mississippi, I-20 through Vicksburg, Warren County, and you run into these problems with traffic, it's because the program that was designed to keep the system looking ahead 20 years down the road and keeping it efficient had been put on a shelf due to the lack of funds. And so that 12 years that capacity program was shelved, we fell behind in our roadways. And so fortunately the commission, thanks to the contributions of the legislative leadership and body, have been able to revamp that program. But if we don't look at modernizing our funding model, I think that we're getting close to an area to where we're going to have to look at devoting all the money back to maintenance again.
And putting things back on the shelf.
Becoming a maintenance state again.
So in casting our gaze to the horizon, then the current condition versus the ideal condition. These questions have largely been, what's the current condition for the responsibility you have and the resources that you have available. If you say to modernize, what does that look like? What's an example? I know we've heard and talked about a recurring funding model. What does that look like? And y'all, in your estimation and opinion, how does that improve? And I understand being able not to put things back on the shelf, but practically speaking, what would that allow you to do? And maybe how more efficient do you think the department could be with that type of model in place?
Every year, our team, in conjunction with Federal Highway Administration, evaluates the pavement of our interstates. And every other year, they're evaluating the rest of the state system. And so it's graded based on what the condition is. And we have certain metrics that we're required to hit by the federal government. Right now, we're able to hit those. But as the cost of doing business has gone up, cost of materials, cost of labor, cost of equipment, the money doesn't go as far as what it used to. So the current deficit that our maintenance alone program is running is around $485 million a year. And that's a significant amount of money. So what the commission and I have proposed to the legislature has been that we need to think of modernizing our system. You know, for so long, all of our eggs were in the basket of the fuel tax. But I don't believe that if our idea is we're just going to raise the fuel tax, I don't know that you can raise the fuel tax enough to eclipse that deficit and it be manageable on the taxpayer. So what most states have done is they've started looking at a more diversified approach. They may have an adjustment of their fuel tax. They may have other fees that they have. They may have something similar to the use tax right now, where counties and cities get 15% of that. If we were to receive a percentage of the unobligated portion of that on a recurring basis, you know, all of those things collectively could be used to help take care of the deficit that we're running. But I think that since it's been almost 40 years since we've adjusted the funding model, that it's going to take an outside-of-the-box type approach to try to come up with something that would work.
I think because of where we are, we actually looking at, now if you look at our maintenance, we have about a $480+ million deficit in maintenance cost needs. We would need, in order to do the projects in our 3-year plan, and the one that we work with the legislation on, coming out of Vision 21 and the 87 Highway Program, and then we put together the 3-year plan that we submit to the legislature. those things that we put in that plan each year, and we modify it each year, those projects, we would need about $200 million annually to take care of it. So we certainly commend Speaker White and his leadership for coming in and talking about tax reform, but also including MDOT in this discussion, because he understands the need that in Mississippi, anywhere in America, you can have the money to build school systems, healthcare facilities, businesses, but if you don't have an adequate infrastructure to get folks to and from, to get the cargo to and from, it's not going to work. So having served in the legislature for 26 years, I would just like to say there are some ways in which we can look at generating revenue different from what we've done in the past. We've been locked in at the 18 cents. Each time you put a penny on, it generates about $23 million annually. So if the legislature decided they wanted to put at the use tax level 5 cents, that brings it to $115 million a year. There's a person that when I look in the mirror and think about infrastructure, I want to beat him up every time I look in the mirror, and that's Willie Simmons. And I say that because when we passed the lottery bill in 2018, I was the one who handled the bill initially on the Senate to get it passed and send it over to the House. We were told by the experts that you would get about 50, no more than $60 million ever collected. So we thought we were smart. We decided to cap it at $80 million for infrastructure, because the purpose of it was for infrastructure. And the House amended it to say the rest of it would go to education. Well, now we get our $80 million, and the education is getting approximately $80 million, or about the same as we're getting. Thanks to the House leadership in the House and the legislature, they kind of fixed education last year in a different way. So we open to the idea of taking the cap off of the lottery and putting more of that money, if not all of it, into our basket. So now we have the 5 cents on fuel tax. We get the lottery money coming to us. And then there's a diversion tax that we created that I would just like to say quickly is working for the counties and municipalities. We put 15% in for counties, 15% for municipalities, 5% for state aid. And as of July of this year, because that money is paid twice a year, the counties had collected about $452 million. The municipalities about $451 million. Put us into that same system. It's not a new tax, but it's new money. Now you're beginning to get us to where we can have monies and plan. In most cases, it's not putting an additional tax on the citizen other than at the pump, those who are using it. So, you know, as a former legislator, you know I respect the legislature, and I don't try to tell them what to do. But just as a former legislator and a commissioner, I would just say there's some things that you can think about, Mr. Speaker.
Duly noted. I'm sure they're taking notes even now. But, you know, the other thing that I've heard and we've talked a little bit about is just increased costs, certainly materials, labor. But, you know, those are continuing to go up, as is the interest in bringing business to Mississippi. I heard Mr. Cork on the radio this morning talking about the southeastern United States continuing to be a destination location for a lot of not just you know, American companies looking to bring new growth opportunities here, but even globally, where MDA is trying to certainly spread the message of Mississippi opportunity around the globe. More opportunities, more economic development projects are certainly looming on the horizon. How involved are you all when, say, an MDA project comes to fruition, or even a local developer that has a project that has an impact in infrastructure? How involved are y'all in those negotiations and some of those meetings to make sure that those resources are in place currently and in the future to meet the need?
I mean, it depends on the project, but normally what happens is when they have a prospect on the line and they're looking at what enhancements to the transportation system that business would need, because they're obviously going to be interested in moving their people to and from the facility as well as their goods and all the things they need in order to conduct business. And then our involvement would be helping come up with what the cost estimates would be to to make those enhancements because, as I said, our system is a little behind in our being proactive as much as we would like to be. But our involvement is normally they come and say, here's our prospect, this is what we need. We do the work to tell them what it's going to take. And then the legislature's been kind enough to step up and then make that contribution. One of the key things the legislature did for us that didn't really involve the appropriation of any funds that I think helps from the standpoint of economic development was give the commission an extra tool in the toolbox with our alternative delivery methods, where we can think outside the box about how we do something. We can bring in a contractor and a design firm, everyone on the front end, and try to mitigate some of the risk that you may run into with some of these major firms like that. But we definitely have a seat at the table and try to assist in every way possible.
Wonderful.
And we work with them, with the governor's office, as they are pushing their mega site program initiative. Things are down around Hattiesburg. We are intimately involved in that over in Lauderdale County. They are looking at putting in and having a mega site, or at least a site, so they need infrastructure support from us. So we work with them based upon that.
Well, and I appreciate your willingness to continue to work and think outside the box. I think if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly in this room, I think there is a desire to try to rethink how we do this so that we're able to equip those agencies and entities that help provide the environment for business growth. We want to figure out new innovative ways to bring resource to see those opportunities continue to grow. I think we may have time for one question. Any question from the audience as it relates to this topic? No?
Ed did as always. He did a great job.
Well, I will say in summation, I'll say what I'm hearing is certainly that you all intend to continue to do the Lord's work with what you're given, trying to provide us a safe infrastructure, but also to try to match the needs of growth opportunities. But knowing that there's going to be more demand and more need on the horizon, trying to rethink since, what was it, Commissioner, 1989, when the last time we had substantive legislation in the funding model, thinking through how you all can be better positioned to meet those growing needs. So I'm certainly appreciative of what you do. I would ask all of you to join me in thanking Commissioner Simmons and Executive Director Brad White for their time this afternoon.